Hello, my name is Arlene Wild. Welcome to my channel. Please like and subscribe. If you're new, welcome. If you're a returning subscriber, then it's good to see you again. This is my very first episode on Arlene Wild Artist. So yes, very exciting. For those of you who have seen my introduction, it's a brand new venture to reach out to people, you know, out there online about my work and the artwork that I do. Anyway, so spring is looming. It's 2024, Easter. Happy Easter to everyone if you celebrate, and if you don't, please enjoy the holidays. Hope you do. I'm going to introduce you to one of the pictures in my spring collection as we're getting ready for our spring shows. Our first show will be at the RHS Wisley. Dates and details below, put on by Craft in Focus. And then from there we go straight on to Hatfield House by Living Crafts. So that kicks off the year. As I said, all the details are down below. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Bluebell Woods. Okay, so we're back with Bentley. Those of you who haven't watched before, Bentley is the machine, my trusty boy. So we're back here, having done quite a bit of the paint work on the piece now. This piece is part of the 2024 spring collection, which will be launched at the RHS Wisley in a few weeks' time. For details, do look on my website. Details will be below, and it would be lovely to see you at the show. Anyway, so we have got quite a bit of the structure going now as far as the paint goes, and what we're doing now is adding in some of the free motion detail. Just brought another piece along to show you. Now this is another style of woodland that I do. I just bring it over here into shot so you can see it. They'll give you an idea of where we're going. Now it's quite a different style, but you can see all the texture and all the rest of it that we're building up. This piece will not be as textured as this one because it is a different type. But, oops, let's get this out of the way. Let's get it out of the way there. Let's move that. However, the idea is that we're going to be closing this bit in so that it becomes more together, more full, like that area in terms of color, because we have a lot of white and a lot of gaps at the minute. But this bit here at the front, you see, is where a lot of the intricate work will be going, because a lot of these little bluebells here, I don't know how well you can see, but you see I've started adding some of the tiny bits of fabric detail as well. None of my work is glued on, it's all drawn on the sewing machine. We've started to add some of the textures here on the riverbank, and also some of the trees have started to get their details and definition. Now these trees are not going to be overly stitched because they're in the distance and I don't want to pull them forward. Besides, they are more of a backdrop thing, and the real action is here at the front. On a separate video, I will also show you how I create my leaves, and all these are hand painted and hand cut by myself as well. We are getting to the stage with this foreground area, which I'm looking to take it back to the paint table, which will be the next step, and add another layer of the acrylic and watercolor, possibly some chalk pastels as well, to try and pull that up so that the two will be kind of on the same level in terms of visual impact. But I'm pleased how it's coming on. You know, the water is, the idea is the water is going to come along here. We're going to fill in a bit of dark blue there eventually and just get some nice movement going through here. So what have you been up to? I hope you've had a good week. As I'm going to start stitching, but I've had quite a nice week. Popped into Lincoln, so I'm free motioning now. Popped into Lincoln, which is our beautiful city. I mean, we've only lived up here, as you know, for not a very long time. We moved here up to the Midlands about 4 years ago, but we've been living in our house in our rural location for only just over 2 years. And Lincoln is my nearest city. It is very old, very historic. It's got a beautiful cathedral, nice cobblestone streets, and a castle, and part of what's left of the walled part of the city, because those of you who are not from the UK or not familiar with these things, a lot of these very ancient cities were behind very large protective walls. Now already we have a problem here. We've hit a little problem, and what it is, the bobbin thread has come out of the race, so we're going in. Now this is part and parcel of my life. Changing the threads and moving things around, for me, it's just second nature. Happens quite a lot, you know. Basically, bearing in mind that the work that we're working on, for one, we're working on a watercolor type paper, which the sewing machine was really designed to work on fabric. And the other thing is, as well, there's a lot of vibration because of the textures and everything. The other thing I do check as well, which that has come out, if your thread does that, you want to check to make sure that nothing has come away from the actual workings of the sewing machine. Anyway, I was telling you, so I went into Lincoln. It was beautiful, lovely day. You know, I would say it really felt like spring, because we are now in March, well into March. So that was very nice. It's nice to get out, you know, even though I love living in my little rural idyll. It's always nice to get out and see the rest of the world. Needless to say, I went craft hunting around the craft shops, can't be helped. Found a few goodies, few art supplies and interesting things. Met a few interesting people. People up here are very, very friendly, very chatty. You know, when you go out, you're bound to get into a nice chat with someone in passing. And, you know, it's just beautiful. It really makes me feel like part of my community, which is really nice. So we've put some of these down here now, these bits of fabric. Some of them are batik, some of them are different fabrics, and I've collaged them in. And what I'm doing is I'm using this pale green thread here to start to draw into it. I don't work with a sketch, as you know, or a photograph, but what I'm doing is working with the painting. I kind of know what it evokes in me. And really, this piece reminds me of last year, and we'll be going back again this year. I'm so fortunate, looking forward to it. It's not part of the world I know very well, but we're going for 2 weeks in Scotland, in the Highlands. Of course, needless to say, I will be doing a come with me, and you'll get to come to see some of the highlights of the Highlands with me, the Scottish Highlands. But that was so inspirational. There were so many lochs and little rivers in the woods, and just wonderful. Now, as I don't know if you do know, if you're a return subscriber, you might know, you might not know, I don't really take photographs when I work. I basically take it all in. You know, I take in the looks and the atmosphere, the things that inspire, and so on. Now we're going to go working up here a little bit. So we're going to turn upside down. Sorry to make you dizzy, but I've got to turn according to how I can get underneath the sewing machine to do a little bit of work. So we're going to pick up some of these little stemmed areas here. So yes, so this is inspired partially by my Scottish adventures, and also we also in the autumn, which a place I have been to before, went up to mid Wales, and we stayed in a wonderful place which was in the middle of the woods, down a lane, nothing else to be seen. Beautiful walks, lots of moss, lots of gorgeous trees, because Wales does get a lot of rain, so it's very green and hilly and gorgeous. So that was also very inspiring. So this piece is like a sort of homage to some of my wonderful memories of there. When I make my work, my intention really is to sort of communicate a message of something I saw. You know, it's like you saw something and you say to your friend, oh, guess what I saw, you know, and it was wonderful, and you want to share. Well, in a way, as an artist, I'm sort of like a messenger in the same way. Now I'm going to take this green thread out, which we have in here at the minute. I'm going to move that, and we're going to move to a little bit of brown. So I've got that one. I picked these out earlier out of my threads. There will be copper, but we're not going to do that yet. I like to put my metallics on at the end, and gray. So these are going to start pulling out some of the accents of the trees, and also some of these darker accents here, so we can start to do some more blending here in preparation for getting the next layer of the paint on. But sometimes, and as you're watching, I was just going to show you something quite lovely. Now, as you notice, when I go to choose my threads, I will do that. You know, I'm doing my interviews. I'm checking to see if it's the right tone. But I'm going to show you something that's rather nice. So this is my palette, roughly. You know, the colors will change, but you can really feel how atmospheric. You can really see where I'm going with it. Once you start placing your threads there, and that's the woods right there. Usually at the end of a working day in the studio, you can tell what I've been working on, because usually there's a little pile, like a little thread palette and fabric palette pile of the colors that I've been using. You know, like, and the room is usually quite a mess. I mean, it's already quite a mess now because I've got I've probably got about 3 fabric crates around me, which you can't see. But they have all my colored fabrics, and I sort of will feature them from time to time, but I did show them on my introduction video, or one of my previous episodes. So I am fancying a bit of brown. I'm just checking. Now, I like to start with a less invasive color of whatever it is that I'm going to use. So what I mean by that is a color that's sort of more like a blending tone, not like a really strong tone, so that I can get some of my foundation work done. And also it means as well that I'm not overly committed, because remember, with this, you cannot pull it out. You have to be sure where you're going and get on with it, because you just can't pull the threads out. And you need to try not to make mistakes as such, because it's going to be difficult. To a degree, you can cover the mistakes, or, you know, I don't know if you call them mistakes or happy accidents, as some people call them. I think Bentley here is not behaving himself. We've got issues again. But this is real life. This is what happens in here, you know. I decided to just do it as it is. We've got to go back in. The bobbin is not happy. It's come out of its race. So what we're going to do is get it back in there. And as I said, sadly, this is par for the course, right? Because, and I'm hoping this thread is going to behave, because it's a bit fine. In my bobbin, I just have one thread. Usually I have a white, because it pretty much goes with everything. And if I have like a dark background where the white is sort of sticking through, when I go to do one of my paint layers, I can just easily paint over that and darken it up. Often I use my Tombos, which are these Japanese watercolor pens. I only use artist materials. I don't use dyes or anything like that on my work, because at the end of the day, they're fine art pieces that are going to be hanging on walls long after I've gone. So I need to guarantee the sort of integrity as much as I can of the work I'm doing. So what's happening now, and let's trim this thread a bit. Let's just get that. Now, Bentley has got an automatic thread cutter, which is probably my favorite feature. So I just press a button and he'll cut the thread. He's not overly computerized, so he is computerized, but he's not an automatic machine, because I'm manually drawing with these threads and using them a bit like a pencil. Now you can see now I'm starting to get this brown in here, and I'm actually, it's like I'm sketching. I'm not just randomly driving around the place. Now, as I said, my videos are not intended as tutorials. They're not tutorials. They're just a way of just talking you through my process and sharing my work with you. And also, for people who come to my events, it will show them the journey from the beginning of the of some of the pictures and paintings, from nothing to original, to stitch print, and to products. Such as our placemats and our coasters and things like that. It just tells a story. So we're going to go up to some of these trees as we've got the brown. I'm just sort of randomly, at this stage, I'm sort of meandering around the place, just adding bits and pieces as I go. I like to work, you know, all over the piece rather than in one area, because really what I'm doing is not creating an embroidery, I'm creating a painting. The whole thing needs to have a relationship with its surroundings and what's with it. Now, as I'm going along, I will think of some of the ideas that I want to do. So I'm going to just bring one of these branches over. So while I'm up here, we're going to get some branches going. So I'll just brought that one down, hanging quite low there. And I couldn't help but when I saw that think it would be quite nice there to bring a little reach. Now, I have all sorts of stuff in here in the studio. We have the thread boxes, and we also have little bits of yarn and nice fancy stuff. So what I'm going to do here is I'm looking for a yarn, a little end to create the texture or the impression of a root. So I need to think about the scale, because that's only a tiny little tree, right? We don't want a massive root. I really like that bit of metallic, which I've put there. So now what we're looking for is somebody nice and skinny and who's not going to give me too much trouble. Now that is going to give me bother. For one, it's shiny. It's going to give me the wrong light. That's not what I want. I want a matte color. But I'm really looking for a brown. A browny color, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's going to look weird to your eye. However, once I go and add my next layer of paint, then I can fix that problem. You know, I can always color it up. So it's going to look a bit green because that's what I've got in the texture I want. But it's okay because when we do the next layer of paint, but it just felt like it could do with a little root there, just reaching down to the water's edge. So I'm going to get myself on top of it. Now, at the minute, we're using a straight stitch because I want real precision. I only use 2 stitches, really. I'm going to cut that thread. Sorry, let's just cut that off. I'm just putting it down. I don't want to squish it all the way down. And I want that root to sort of reach into the water. Moving up here. I'm going to get that in. And in we go. So we're in. And that really does start to, you know, really starts to bring that tree to life. We'll lose that loose thread. As it builds up more with all its little elements, it all pulls together nicely. So we're off again. So we still have our brown. We did a little work there. We're quite happy with that. And it's a case of just little increments, you know, going round and round and round. So I'm going to do a little bit on this tree now. I'm going to get my needle, my foot back down and my needle down. I'm going to sort of texturize this tree a bit. And I'm dragging the piece through to draw it. Now, you notice the trees are a bit decapitated at the top. Doesn't really matter because they're going to be, the picture's going to be mounted just at the top there anyway. So there's no need to work what's going to be underneath, you know. And besides, for Simon, which is my husband, as you know, he does all the framing and that sort of thing. If I work all the way up there, it really creates problems when he goes to mount the piece of work, when he goes to finish it. He needs like a nice quiet area where everything will sit nice and flush. So I do need to bear that in mind. When I first started, I used to work all the way to the edge and fall off the edge, and it used to drive him nuts. So I try not to do that these days. So I'm just doing a little bit on this tree. And it's a case of little, you know, I move around the piece, then it will go to the paint. When it goes back for its next layer of paint, the piece will naturally develop quite a bit. So I'm just putting a bit of texture onto that branch. We're going to cut, move across. There's a tree here. This one, I'm just building that tree. So it's a little bit gappy. I've just put it in because I wanted to put it there. There was no tree there. I decided to plant it. After that, the paint layer went on, and that is going to have some paint in the middle here and to break it, hence why it looks a little bit sort of odd, but it won't stay odd. It will soon fit in. Now, in an ideal world, if I could, I would have the paint pot right next to me, but sadly you can't stitch onto wet paint, right? It doesn't work. Now that branch, I'm going to take that up there because I really want it to disappear, so that you get the impression, even when it is finished, that it disappears up into, you know, out of sight, really. So I'm just going to put another branch across here. Turn her around again. But yeah, this piece is definitely, I can tell, is getting to the stage where it really does need the next layer of paint. And I can usually tell because in a way I feel like the painted bits are diminishing, you know. They're not as playing as much of a part as they were, certainly down here. They're sort of disappearing, so to speak. And when I'm drawing along like this, I'm keenly aware of perspective. I'm keenly aware of the image, because wherever I put my lines, wherever I draw my lines and everything, does affect what you see. Now I can tell that that's been squashed. I don't know if you can see, but right up there, the picture is right squashed up against the neck of Bentley, the sewing machine, and I need to make sure I don't bend that, because I can't get the bend out, and that will ruin the original. And I'm afraid it has no sympathy. It doesn't matter how long you've been working on it. If you mess it up, you mess it up, right? Which I try not to mess up too many, and I don't lose too many pieces, thankfully. And I think mostly it's because I work in a very patient and considered way. You know, you can see I'm not rushing through here. You know, I'm making steady progress, but I'm actually enjoying the process. And we just put a little bit more detail here into this path. And that's disappearing off into the distance. Whoopsie. So that slipped a little. I like how this little rock here is really looking nice with that background. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sketch them in, because that really is nice. So I'm going to now do some work to draw in this area. You know, when at this stage, a lot still seems very loose. You know what I mean by loose? Like things are a bit lumpy and all the rest of it. The leaves, which I'm going to do, I can't wait to do them. They're going to be here. They're going to look as if they've been blown up, and we're going to have them, and they're going to be quite raised here in this corner, which is really going to help with that perspective, because it's as if we're standing out here looking in. And that is how it will present when it's in the home, and on its products, like its mats or whatever. It's as if this area here is right in your face. You're right there. You're almost crouching down in it, and then you're looking into the vista. You're looking up there, and the sun is. We're not sure. Is it coming up? Is it going down? I like to leave a bit of mystery in my pieces. Gives you somewhere to daydream, somewhere to think. And that's just kind of how I work. And as you'll often hear me say, I like it when people buy pieces that remind them of somewhere or some point in their lives. Because really, you know, even though I'm creating these paintings, really they're going to be with you in your home, either in the form of a product like a mat or a poster or a print or the original, for a lot longer than they'll be with me. You see, this is beautiful now. That's really coming together nicely. This blue, you'll find that maybe we might vary some of the tones as we put the paint in next time. I'm going to get a little of the brown up here now. So we're going to get back up here. And again, I'm looking all the time. See that moss? Look at it. So I traced that. Shall we do a bit of moss so that you can see how I do the moss? Let's do that. But let's just do a little work in here. So I'm pulling this area together, because that's kind of what we're doing now. So I'm working a lot up in this area. This area here, we're going to do on another session. I'll show you a sneak peek of this. Or in fact, we might even do it later, because I haven't done that much time on the video. So we've got enough time. And I'll show you why we're not really doing down there at the minute. I'm getting this bit worked on more, because down here, things really get a bit tedious. Because really, this is where we start adding a few petals here and there to really bring that foreground to life. So that we'd put in here. Now, I had said I was going to see if I can find you somewhere to show you how I create my pretty little moss area. Let's see where we can put some moss. I think we could have a little moss maybe there. I don't know. So what I use, if I bring back my trusty little bag, is these. And these are just, pull that one out. Is that a good mossy color? A bit browny, but see, that's nice moss too. But I don't want this one to be as prominent. I wanted to push it back a bit, just more for the texture. Now these are knitting ribbons. You use them can use them for knitting. And these ones are hand dyed. I didn't dye them, but they are hand dyed. So what you do is a little trick to it. You see, I learned this when I was in college. You just get the end and you pull it. It pulls out and you see what it does. Isn't that cool? It sort of crinkles up that. So you can use it like that as a ribbon to couch it down, to catch it down with the sewing machine. So I like that. So that's my little bit of mossy stuff. We're going to decide where we're going to put it. Now I'm going over here, but I don't think this tree is ready yet, so we're not going to go there. I was thinking over here, but of course it's this brownie color. I don't know if that will work in there. And you know, I think that could be quite nice there. It's really nice because then when I go to paint now, I can pull some of that color into this area here. Because you know, so we have a lot of gaps and white bits there, which are yet to be filled in. So what I've got is my brown thread and my feet are down. And if I go, you want to watch your fingers. You only want to do that once or twice. That's not very nice. I'm just sketching it in as if it's on that rock. Whoops, we got a bit caught. So our foot is caught there. So what's happened is the free motion foot has gotten itself trapped underneath the thread. People ask me questions like, will the threads become undone in the, you know, like on their own? No, they're not going to become undone. You're not going to have your picture on the wall, whether you have a stitch print or original, and find that, oh my gosh, you know, it's unraveled in the night. It's not likely to happen, is it? And even if it were, you did handle it, it's not going to unravel. A lot of these leaves as well, we're going to bring the colors out, more colors and tones, and you can see where I've already started to add a few bits to the leaves. So coming down here now, the exciting thing about getting to see this process is this piece here, as I said, is going to be part of the spring collection. In a few weeks time, we'll be stitching and working on its stitch prints as well. So you'll be able to see what happens. And what a stitch print is, it's an art or giclée print of one of my original pieces, which then comes back off the art printer as a plain print. And then what happens is I bring it back to the sewing machine. Now, I don't look at the master, aka the original, to work out how I'm going to enhance the print. Sometimes the original is gone, it's been sold and gone to its new person, right? So it's neither here nor there. But I don't, because I made the piece. It came from my soul and inside of me. So it's like it's a blueprint is in my head. And to be honest, I'm not looking to have all my prints identical, because the whole point of the stitch prints is that my customers are able to, if they can afford the original, fine. But if they can't, they're able to have a stitch print which has some of the texture and the techniques that were used on the original. And so I want each one of them to have a unique piece to themselves, really. So so I'm not going to slavishly copy exactly. The base image will be the same, and obviously it will have all of these, the print of all of the textiles and stuff that went on, but it needs to have its own individual identity for that person. They come in two sizes generally. They come in a large replica size of this original piece, depending on the original. Some of my originals are a bit larger, but roughly our prints are about this size, a little bit bigger. The large ones like this, they do have fabric added to them as well as stitch. And we sell them both framed and unframed. Details are on the website, so I said details below on the video. And they also come in an A3 size, which does correspond with a standard frame that you can buy, because we try, again, you know, to help people, to make it easier for them. Why make your hard life difficult? If they want to bespoke and a smaller print, then fine. If they don't want to, they should be able to, with those, you know, like an A3 size, to be able to go to the shops and buy something off the rack if that's what suits their budget. Because at the end of the day, my main thing is I want my work to be accessible to people, for them to be able to enjoy it. Whether they buy a greeting card or a tea towel or whatever they can afford to buy, or even what they need, because sometimes you can afford something different, you just don't want it. Yes, doesn't fit into your lifestyle. So that's good too. So we're gonna go down here. But yes, it'll be really good for you to be able to watch the channel and watch the journey of the products, to see how they develop, how each image, if it is chosen to be part of the overall collection and not just be a picture, because some of them just become an original and never go to print. Some of them don't go to print. Not because there's anything wrong with them, but maybe for whatever reason they don't suit, or we might have something else which is selling well in the collection anyway, which fills, you know, that bill, so we don't need another whatever the image is within the collection. Or sometimes they just don't photograph well, you know, they don't want to be anything but themselves. Some of them are a bit diva-ish like that. So we're working in here, that's fine. Okay, so we have come over to the paint table. The sewing machine is over the other side, directly in front of me. Generally, basically, my workroom is not very big. However, what I have done is to create a clean area and what I call the dirty, wet area, because you don't really want to mix the paint side with, you know, the fabric, the machine side. And it's just going to be a quick demo. I'm just going to show you what happens next, what I'm doing next, you know. So I want to start bringing some of this water across. Now I've put the rocks and everything. So basically I'm using White Nights watercolor here. I will use some acrylic as well, but for ease, especially with you watching, it's a lot easier to demonstrate with the watercolor layer first, and then there will be some acrylic work going in as well. So I'm just, White Nights is a very good quality paint. Just use my finger there. What I'm also going to do is to bring a little bit of that blue now behind these bluebells. So I'm filling them in slowly. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Just blocking in a bit of this blue, because I want the impression that the water is going by here. Didn't do it initially because I wanted to get in these textile bits. You remember I said that it is like a layer, like a jigsaw. So I'm starting to, using an ultramarine there. If I show you my palette, I don't really like working on palettes. With my acrylics, I work directly in to the piece, to be honest. I don't mix, I mix the color on the actual work. And I'm just adding in a darker blue here to get some of these darker tones. So I'm just going to go back in here. And I'm working with a fairly damp brush. I haven't got a piece here now, but hang on. If you just bear with me 1 second, just bear with. I'm just going to go and get myself a little square of kitchen roll. Just kitchen roll. I like to have that handy because sometimes with the paper you don't want to get too much water on the surface. It doesn't like it, and it could cause buckling. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm sort of marrying in these pieces now, you know, so that they're not looking so alien. They're starting now to form, to pull together nicely. So I'm just looking for my places. I'm going to put some there. I'm not painting all over because I want to keep some of that brown, and in fact some of that brown. So we're going to go behind, keep going behind these bluebells here. I'm hoping you can see. I'm filling in a bit of these spaces here. Okay. The light I use when I'm working is a daylight light. I don't like, I like the daylight light because it simulates what's outside. I want to make sure that the light that I'm using is going to give me a similar sort of ambience to a nice well-lit room rather than outside. I don't paint outside, really, not really. Never really enjoyed it. I know a lot of artists do paint outside. I don't find it suits my purposes so much because remember the sewing machine is inside, right? So I've just found over the years, for me personally, and each person has their own way of working, I find that just works better for me because at the end of the day, a big part of my process is being done inside. so I can then sort of moderate the light in my mind better. So I find the watercolor gives a nice sort of, again, if you think along the lines of layers, right, it's giving a nice sort of just get behind some of these. It's given me a sort of, you remember we talked about the threads, how we don't want at this sort of early stage, because it's not that early, but it's early enough for me. What we don't want is to commit, have something that's that overpowering, right? Because we're building it up slowly. Now, I want some of that really dark blue, so I'm going to try and get some of that there. So we're starting to build it slowly, slowly, slowly. You can always take things, you can always put more in, not so easy to take it out, right? So it's best to do it slowly. And what I don't want is for any buckling of this paper to take place, because I can't get rid of that if it starts doing that. So even though I've got a lot of water, I'm using the side of the brush because I can control more what's going on. That's really, the color is really intensifying now, and I'm liking that. We need to bring the intensity here, but we're taking our time. So it's the color there on the paper. I mean, each person has their own way of working, right? It's just, this process just works for me. This is just how I like to work. Now, that paper there is starting to get a bit wet in areas. So what I usually do now is to leave it and let that dry. So I'm not going to do any more blue for the minute, and just a little bit more, because, you know, I'm not going to spend a lot of time showing this part, because I like a little bit of quiet time doing it, a bit of focus. So now I'm going to get myself a green going, just a very light green here. And I'm going to start to do some of the details, schmeetails on here. And you can see it's a very slow process. Well, for me, I don't think of it as slow. It's a very, what I call a considered process now. And the reason why I put them in afterwards, I like to just, you know, just again, I'm kind of getting information from the rest of the picture I've created so far on my tones, my values. See, and I just really like it. The leaves also are going to get a bit of work to really bring them to life, because at the minute they have a very basic color on them. But you can see already, I can just feel them coming to life. It's so exciting. It's just really nice, but quite peaceful as well. Obviously, we still have the drama of the leaf litter, which you're going to do here, that's one of them there, which we'll do in another episode. I will record how I did that. So I'm just bringing some of this limey green now into these leaves here. So I'm just got my pot of water next to me, and too much water there. So what I'm doing is just dabbing a little bit of it off. Right, so I'm just mixing up a few green options here. So if you just bear with me. That's all I'm doing, is just creating like little puddles of different tones of green. So let's start going. So I'm going to put a little bit of that there. So pretty much we're doing the same as we did on the sewing machine in a bizarre sort of way. We're still painting, just that we're painting with the wet stuff now. Okay. And we're bringing these leaves to life. So we sort of bring in some of the shades and tones that we had at the top there into these leaves here. Starting light and building up. So that's that. I want a slightly darker shade there. I'm just looking for the right one. Just mixing it in. Not happy with that. Right, let's try that. Nice. That's got a dark colour. And you do need your darks and your lights, you know, because you need your shadows, your depths, and everything. So Just getting some green now into those stems, which are a bit pasted for. Meanwhile, while I'm working on this area is quite damp, so I'm not going to mess about with that area very much now. I'm going to let it dry probably overnight. And then I'm probably going to look at probably bringing some pastels in there and some acrylics before it goes back to the machine as well, to really start to intensify the color. Carry on doing my little caps. They're quite cute. I like that. I mean, basically, when I'm working, I try and be as relaxed as possible and just enjoy the process of creating the piece of work. I'm not really, I don't put myself under too much pressure, because what's the point? If I wanted pressure, I would still have a corporate job. As somebody made me laugh and said, with my health care and my pension and all the other things, I'm doing a job I love. I'm doing something which is very relaxing, and I want to enjoy the process. You know, I don't want to feel rushed and stuff working. I don't do that. It doesn't work. Besides, I find that with creative people, it's very difficult. You know, you really can't produce good work if you're stressed out. You just can't. It doesn't come. So you see, that's really nice now. You see how the colors, I don't know if you can see how the vibrancy. Before, if we look at this section, it's still got a lot of the yellow tones and the lighter tones. It looks quite different to that area there. They don't really have the same. It has the base color, but it hasn't got, and what I'm looking to do is to bring a lot of these tones, and there are so many to choose from. You've got these sort of bluey greens here, the limey greens. And it's very much reminiscent of a woodland. The sun is here, so the light is playing on the water and playing on these sides of these trees. Over here, we're more in the shade, and over there, you know, it's a little bit brighter, but that wood looks deep and shady. Actually, what I'm gonna do is I want to do something in here. Let's have a look. I take a little of this green, a little bit of this blue. Yeah, that bit was gappy because of the trees. I'm just gonna start to introduce a little color in there. That mysterious, that area. And that will keep building. The only other thing is, obviously, I said with this tree, that's going to be mostly in acrylic. We're going to build that in, and then it will be more textured. Going to be a prominent tree. Sadly, we might lose some bluebells. That's probably going to become a little bit fatter, a bit more of a prominent tree because it's further forward. What else can we play around with? Like I said, a lot of the work I'm going to be doing when behind closed doors, when I can, not having to, you know, to talk to you as well, though nice though it is, and I can focus on the details and really lock into the work, because obviously I only get one shot at it. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just having a look. Let's see, we could put a little bit of that in there, darken that area a bit, darken this area a bit. And I have to be careful, this area is a bit wet, so I don't want to work in there too much. To this dark color here. Where that was here. A bit there. It's just a very chilled out process, you know. At the end of the day, it takes time to build a picture. Notice I didn't say paint a picture, because you actually build a picture. Well, that sounds weird. Well, I think I build a picture anyway. It does take time. It takes time. It takes concentration. And I like to look, you know, walk away from my pieces and come back to them again. And some of those shadows over there and details. I mean, even I've noticed even the tone of my voice, the way I'm speaking to you, has changed. So I'm going to do a bit more work on this tree, just define some more. because each layer is giving it more definition than the layer before. See, I'm just giving this chap a bit more life here. And I think you're getting the general picture of how I work and how it works and how I build my work. I mean, next time when you see it, it will either be finished or close to a finish. And then hopefully we'll, if nothing else, show you a still of it once it's had its handmade frame. In fact, I don't know, we'll see if we do manage to fit it in. It would be nice to go out into the Simon's workshop to see the frame, actually, the mount being selected, see it being framed, well, part of the process, and then get to see it hanging up waiting for its new home. It's a very humbling feeling, actually, to, you know, see, I'm being tearful now, I'm all emotional. Besides, I'm a woman of a certain age, you've got to let me off. But it does. It makes me feel very humble and honored to be able to produce work that will outlive me. It will be hanging somewhere. A lot of them when I'm long since forgotten and gone. It is quite a privilege. Not one that I take for granted, and especially as I'm a self-taught artist. I think my art started out of, I don't know. When I was a child, I was on my own quite a lot because I was an only child until I was age 7. And then obviously when you're 7 and you have a baby brother, you know, and he was lovely. It was nice to have a sibling, but at the end of the day, I was 7. I would have been 10 by the time he was 3. So even though it was nice to have him, it's not like you have a sibling who, you know, is your same age. So you're kind of like on your own a lot, making your own sort of amusement, so to speak. I don't remember being lonely as a child. Not really. In fact, loneliness, I wouldn't say I've never been lonely, but I don't really, loneliness is not something that I am not able to manage, because I have a lot of interests. I think I've, by design, all my life, I think I've created you know, more and more things to be interested in, and that's how the art came about. I just started painting and like I'm doing now, just capturing things I saw. I didn't sketch or anything. I used to just paint watercolor. And even when I work with my acrylics now, I do work in a watercolor type style. I like a lot of wet on wet. I like that sort of airy, ethereal way of working. I like the layers, the thin layers building up. So yeah, so I feel quite honored and quite fortunate to have this skill. I don't know where it comes from. I've not really thought about it really, but I think from a very early age, and definitely my teens, I knew that I wanted to have a creative type career. And I always knew I wanted to be self-employed, even though I spent many years, obviously, working for corporations. I always knew it wasn't what I wanted to do. As our relationship develops, you know, over the time of the channel, you'll understand more about my journey. You know, hopefully I'll share a bit more about my journey, and yeah. But for now, thanks for joining. Yeah. And as I like to say sometimes, if I remember at the end of each broadcast, is be kind, be positive, be creative. Bye for now.